What up, my good people in the YouTube world? You already know what it is. This your boy B. We right back up at you cats with another live video. We are on our way to the Tridane station. And I gotta be honest with you guys, man. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite parts of the day. When I could get up here and talk to the people them. I got me a beautiful chat, man. I love you guys, man. Y'all are some of the funniest people. I go back and I listen to some of the comments that you guys say, man. Y'all say my y'all say my live stream is gay. One person called me a tranny. Uh, they be telling me the ding dong ditch. They ask me to jack cars that people are warming up. You guys are hilarious, man. And I listen to them when I go home at, oh shit, I left, do I got it on me? Oh, damn, I think I left my wallet. Oh, no, I got it. Whew. All right, cool, we straight. So, let me see, let me make sure. Do I got this damn wallet, all this stuff in my pocket? Make sure, man. Is this my wallet? All right, yep, I'm good. I got my wallet. All right, cool. So yeah, y'all become my favorite part of the day, man. And today we have a special live. And it is going to be giving a shout out and extra props to my pa. That's my dad. He just turned, what, 77 years old, man. Sylvester. My mother used to call him Vest. We're gonna get into that relationship later on. But you guys know I gotta keep the integrity of the show alive. You know, this show is about integrity. So we got to keep the integrity alive, man. So you know how I started off with that 10%. You know, we're going to talk about health first. We're going to talk about career. And then we're just going to talk about overall health. And then, like I said, I'm going to tell you guys about my pa, about my pops. You dig? So health-wise, yo, I ain't even going to lie, man. I kind of backslid, man. Y'all know I got that Dexcon, which is a continuous glucose monitor. And diabetes, man, let me tell y'all about diabetes, yo. It is a chronic disease, and it's always lurking in the background. I call diabetes like Margarito, Antonio Margarito. You guys ever watch boxing? Well, Antonio Margarito was a fighter back in the day that was just persistent. Like, if you go back and listen or watch the first fight that he had with Miguel Cotto, people say that his gloves were loaded, but diabetes, man, diabetes gloves are loaded too, you know? So Margarito was a guy that was just a pressure fighter, a straight up pressure and a swarmer. He was tall and he could take a punch, but he was persistent and he would never stop. So if you look at the fight that he had with Miguel Cotto was a Puerto Rican boxer. And you guys know Puerto Ricans have a rich history in boxing. So Miguel Cotto came from that line of history where, you know, he was nice. Like Miguel Cotto had everything. He had pretty good power. He was a pretty good technical fighter. He could do everything well. And he actually grew into being one of my favorite fighters. But when he fought Antonio Margarito, he was dominating Margarito for the first couple rounds, looking great, tagging him up, throwing beautiful combinations. But Margarito was the type that could take so much pounding. No homo. You could punch him, do everything, but he always come forward. And he's never going to stop coming, man. You know? And that's kind of how diabetes is. And if you guys look at Miguel Cotto's face after that fight, that's what diabetes will do to you after, 10, 11 rounds of just straight up pressure, man. That's what diabetes do to your body, you know? So you got to kind of keep an eye on it, man. And the way that you can make it easier by managing it, the better. So my grandmother and grandfather, they both passed away from complications of diabetes. And they were from the old school. This was back in the day where they had to take shots. They had to prick their finger in order to control their diabetes. And it ultimately got the best of them. So nowadays, it's much easier. You have things like insulin pumps. You have things like the continuous glucose monitor, which I have, where all you basically have to do is look at your phone and it can tell you what your sugar levels are. And you can also set alarms for it, where you'll say, okay, if it gets this low, I need it to beep. If it gets this high, I need it to beep. And this is the way that you control it in the modern era, which makes it much easier. But it's still user error. And it's always gonna go on who you are as a person, meaning your diet, and also if you're gonna sit up there and manually take it. As I told you guys, I do have a pump, but I haven't used the pump because I haven't seen my endocrinologist in a couple of months. And they have it so if you don't see them within 3 months, they're not gonna give you the pump. They're not gonna keep constantly giving you the pump. So I gotta work my way back up to get the pump, and this is the way it happens. So whenever I don't cover myself for a meal, my numbers shoot up high. And last night they were very, very, very high because I had a meal and I was being lazy and I did not take my insulin. So it went up, it went up. When I woke up, I did take another shot to bring it down. So it should be dropping soon. So we talk about the health. Next, we speak about the career. And in my career, things were getting stressful, like I told you guys yesterday. Things kind of straightened up a little bit this week or yesterday. We got a lot of work done, but there's still a lot more to be done, man. I'm training somebody. They don't get it. So last night I went home and thought of a new method to try to teach that person on how to get the information. And hopefully that works out today. We're gonna see. I also have to do something with another department who saw some of the charts that I created and they really liked it. So they wanted me to come on and help another team. So I got that today. Also, we're still constructing a response to one of our affiliates that we work with. And this response has to basically answer some technical issues. And y'all know I have a degree in computer science, but this stuff is a little bit beyond me, It has to do with the server and also our interface, which is an API. And I don't work with that stuff directly. All I can do is put it together and see what I can tell. And on my level, I've seen some stuff that it possibly could be, but I'm not the most technical in the department, meaning I don't work for IT. So I just have to present them my findings and check what they say on the server side. You feel me? So that's what we're doing at work today. And this leads me into the main topic of the day, and that is my paw. And shout out to my father. Like I said, this is his 77th. Man, I think he may be older than that, man. I think my father close to 80, kid. And today is his birthday. He said all he wanted from his only son was a letter. He wanted me to write him a letter. That'll tell you how old school he is. But I'm gonna do him one better. He wanted a letter, and I'm gonna do him one better. And I'm gonna speak about how he influenced and affected my life, because that's what he wanted in the letter. You dig? So we'll start it off like this, man. And this is not to get on some self-pity stuff. This is not a black power moment, none of that nonsense. But these are just facts, okay? So my father was born in Alabama, right? Born and raised in Alabama. He still tell me some of the stories about when he was born and how he was raised as a kid and some of the racist things that he seen coming up in Alabama. So we talking a different time period, man. We talking the 50s and 60s that he was around in. And he was telling me how he couldn't talk back to white people. He couldn't even walk on the same sidewalk as white people, how it was out there. He literally had no power. Then when it came to the job market, he always told me that the opportunities in the South for black people during that time were very scarce. So in order for him to make it, he had to move to New York. He had to move to New York from Alabama. And at the time, he was the first one to bounce of his family. He had no family members out here, and he moved to Brooklyn. Was straight up staying in Brooklyn. Now, my grandmother and grandfather, they were from where? North Carolina. And they have a similar story where my grandfather didn't have too many chances down there in North Carolina. So he moved with his family, and they all came to New York. And one of the first pipelines from the South was basically Brooklyn. So both of them, my father and my grandfather on my mother's side, both moved to Brooklyn first. So they was in Brooklyn. This was all before I was born. And my father, he moved from Brooklyn to Long Island. And his sister was the second person from his family to move from Alabama to New York. And she was staying in Hempstead. So my father would come out and stay with his sister in Hempstead. And he started working. He was like a salesman, yo. A salesman. He would go around to people's, like, that's just my father, yo. He always had that mind frame. He had an entrepreneur mind frame from young. So he would get clothing, and he would go around and sell the clothing, right? And he'll go from house to house. And one day he went into my grandmother's house, and that's where he met my mother, selling clothes. And they got together, they got married, and they had me. Now, their relationship was rocky. You know, I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. It was very, very rocky. I used to see a lot of stuff when I was a kid. And, you know, some of this probably influenced me and my drinking, me and all of this stuff, you know. But my father was loving, my mother was loving, but they had a volatile relationship at times. And when I say volatile, I'm talking they used to fight, yo. And I used to see it. And, you know, I wouldn't say that they would hit each other, but they would yell at each other. My mother had a tendency to have a personality where if they were fighting, she would try to leave. She would not sit there, talk to him, and work it out. She would try to leave. And my father was the type to be like, nah, you're not going nowhere. So he would physically stop her from leaving the house. She'll want to leave to go to her mother's house. And my father would like get on top of him, like, nah, you're not going. You staying here and we having this conversation. So sometimes my mother would call me into the room, you know, and I would see that type of stuff. And I would like try to get my father off my mother so that my mother could leave. Cause you know, at the time I was a straight up mama's boy. I think most little boys, they are like that, you know what I mean? And that's how I was. So if I seen my mother crying and upset, it would, you know, affect me. And I hold that same grudges against my pops, you know? So ultimately they separated and my father was still in my life, you know? Like my mother never tried to keep me away from him and she never said anything negative or bad about him. My pops would still come and pick me up every single weekend, yo. And they, you know, they was on and off. So they would be off and then, you know, he'll move back into the crib and he would be in the house and the same things would go on. But my father is a very intelligent person. He got a degree. I forget where he got his undergrad from, but he got a master's from Columbia. And when I was a kid, I used to see him early in the morning. He'll leave like 4 o'clock like I leave now, and he'll be going, working and going to school at the same time. So my pops would come home the same like me when I was doing it, like 11 o'clock at night. So this is what I used to always see my father doing. He would wear the trench coat. He would always have a tie. He was just all in the corporate world. He used to work in, software at first. But he said he couldn't do the corporate thing, man. They were trying to attempt to make him do things that he wasn't. This is nice. This is a beautiful home right here. Y'all see that? They would try to make him do things that he wasn't comfortable with. So he got into teaching. And that's how he retired, being a teacher. But the fact of the matter is, I think that young black kids or just people in general, you need your father, man, especially for a boy. You most definitely need your father in their life. And my father was a strong figure. My mother's side of the family from Long Island, man. You know what I mean? From the South. And we talking New York back in the 70s and 80s. If y'all look at them crime stats in New York, they were crazy. We talking 2,000 murders a year back in the 90s. So they came up in a different time when New York was just straight up dangerous. And being from Long Island, my mother's side, they used to be shook. They didn't want to go around to the city and be all those other places. But my father was never scared. So my father would take me. We would go to Yankee Stadium out there in the Bronx back in the 80s to go watch baseball games. It'd be late in the subways. My father used to stay in Brooklyn, so he used to take me to Brownsville, Bed-Stuy. We'd be going to Jamaica Avenue back in the 80s, and this times where, you know, this is rough times. You'll get robbed out there. You know, you could have got killed out there, man. You know, you look at the Bernard Goetz case in the subway. Like now, those crime stats that they try to make you look at now, these crime stats ain't nothing compared to the way New York was back in the 80s and 90s. Absolutely nothing. You know, I laugh at them, not laughing because each life means something. So when I look at New York now and see 300 murders or 400 murders, or even during COVID time when they were saying the crime was going crazy, we talking 600 murders. But back in the day in New York, you was getting 2,300 murders. You understand what I'm saying? And that's where we came up in. So the crime stats now was nothing. But my pops, he kept me out there in the city. He kept me going to the natural museum, the Museum of Natural History. He would take me to all of these places. He would take me to DC when I already know how DC was back in the 80s and 90s. It was crazy. Take me to Philly back during those times, to Boston, to where else we went? We would go to places in Florida. He'd take me out there to Fort Lauderdale, places like that. Orlando, we would go. He just showed me the world, man. And the biggest thing my father always told me was to take responsibility, my people. What up? We got some people in the check-in. What they say? What state are you in? I'm in New York, baby. Straight from New York. And thanks for checking in. Hit that like button. I'm straight from New York. Yeah, so my father was always that person. And the biggest thing he always taught me was to take responsibility. And no excuses, my people. And when I say no excuses, I literally mean no excuses. He told me, he said, Bradley, you are a man. Nobody can control the outcome in your life. You know, he said, if you're not getting what you want, try another way. Try another method. That method ain't working. You have to take full responsibility. Like, how can you be a man and say that you didn't do something that you wanted to do in this world based on something that somebody else did? You know what I mean? Somebody said, cool, thanks. I was raised in the South Bronx, 180th and Park, but not in Connecticut. All right, that's what up. So you from the BX? All right, yeah, I know a few people out there in the Bronx, man. I know my pops, like I was just saying, my father used to take me out there to Yankee Stadium in South Bronx back in the 80s and 90s, man. You know, back when Dave Winfield was on the Yankees. So, and Don Mattingly, coaches. So you already know what it is, you know what I mean? And like I was telling them, New York was way different back then. You know what I mean? Like the Bronx, it's like, okay, the Bronx is still dangerous now, but it's nothing compared to the way it was in the early 90s and late 80s. Like, it was really a war zone. So you being from out there, yo, it's rough. You said you was born in Connecticut? Yeah, I know about Connecticut too, Hartford. My boy, his baby moms is from out there in Connecticut, yo. And, yo, she was a rough one. She's from the projects out there, man. Shout out to my boy. Yeah, I think he's from Connecticut. Chad Dawson, right? He was one of my favorite boxers. I think he's from Hartford, Connecticut, one of them spots. But he was one of my favorite fighters, you know what I mean? Shout out to my boy, Chad Dawson, you dig? So, yeah. But my father, he always taught me to take responsibility. And I think that is one of the biggest things that I carry forward now. You know, if I want to do something, again, nothing can stop me. Nobody can stop me, you know? And I got to kind of come back on that a little bit because it also has to do with, where you are in life. Because I seen people who have the same drive as me, the same work ethic, but at the same time, they are not in a position to get as rewarded as I do for the position I'm in. So, like I said, it's parents, man. It's parents. You know, I work hard, but I basically got put on a stage where my work can be seen, you know? And that's a shout out straight to my mother because, you know, she was working in the corporate world and she got me my first internship. And from there, we moved forward. But they provided the way. And my father, he actually paid for my education. You know, he worked very, very, very hard. Yo, I went to Hofstra. And y'all know how much the tuition was. I went there for 4 years. And all I had to take out in those 4 years